Hi, this is Dayon Paul with the second episode of Creative Entrepreneurs. Today, I am interviewing Sheldon Altfeld, who is a 12-time Emmy Award nominee, founder of the Silent Network, and longtime filmmaker and producer in Hollywood. Sheldon, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? I have your book here, by the way.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
I know this is going to answer a lot of questions for people, but perhaps you
sure.
could tell me a little bit about, maybe a little bit about how you got started. What really drew you to entertainment in Hollywood? And I know you moved there probably in your younger days, and then eventually, obviously, being in a city like that, you would be around entertainment. But what really drove you into being sort of in television?
It's
It's like that.
it's a strange story. My parents uh, lived in Chicago, and so did I and my sister. And when I was 4, I complained to my mother I couldn't stand the cold snow weather in Chicago. So my father finally decided, let's go to California and see what's there. Um, so they rounded up and we headed to from Chicago to Hollywood. And when we got to Hollywood, they somehow managed to get a very big apartment on the corner of Willoughby and Vine Street in downtown Hollywood. And that's how I grew up. By that time, I was 5 years old. And I realized soon that almost every child that I was with, the same age, was a child of parents who were all in show business. They were writers and producers and all kinds of things. And I was kind of sucked into it. And by the time I was 7, I was doing a radio show on NBC. And one thing led to another, and I'd have to go to my school. But what happened was when I was 10, I wandered over to the NBC building on Sunset and Vine and sat in a chair just to watch the people come and go. And a guy came out of a room and he grabbed me by the arm and he said, "You go on in 5 minutes." And he yanked me out and threw me in this studio thinking that I was the person he wanted, but it was too close to the show to get another person in. So I was handed the script, and I ended up being the child voice for a radio show called The Lassie Show, and it featured the dog called Lassie. And by pure coincidence, that became the first thing in my theatrical future. And I did the Lassie show a couple of times, and it was pretty funny because Lassie was on a stool right next to me while I was doing the show.
So they actually had the dog in the studio, even
Oh
though you
yeah,
had cameras, they
and
had
it
the
was an
dog there.
audience. They had a big
Oh.
audience there.
Oh, so it was a stage kind of
Yeah,
presentation.
and I didn't know the studio. I didn't know who the people were there. I just did what I thought I needed to say, and one thing led to another, and I was constantly looking for another production job. But I had to be very careful with the movers and shakers in the business because they were running and traveling, and they wanted somebody who was young but follow their orders. And that turned out to be me. I didn't know exactly what I would be doing in the entertainment industry, but I was hired to do a TV show. And I sat during the period in which they were changing programs. And I got up and I walked around to see how the studio looked and what people were doing. And I walked over to where the show was being produced. And I said to a man, if you move that light over there and this microphone over here, I think you'll get a better show. And he said, "Listen, kid, if you want a big show, get your own show." And they threw me out of the office. And I was 9 when that happened. And as I was sailing out of that studio, I was thinking, now I know how to be in show business. And, and that got me started.
So getting the feathers ruffled of the producers, kind of figured it out.
It
You didn't
didn't
want to
take
ruffle
long.
any feathers, but then when you did, you figured, oh, well, this is really what I want to do.
Actually, for me, it was more entertaining
Yeah.
than anything else because I knew that the production people have to do what they have to do. I felt that if I can sneak a piece of what they're doing, then maybe I can figure out how I'm going to do it. And so by the time I was 14, I had my own show, and it was a children's show, but I enjoyed it a lot because people were interested in that kind of thing. I was young, so I got away with a lot of things I shouldn't have done. But as time passed on, I created my own venture. I worked very hard in regular programming on radio, on television, on all kinds of things that I could do. And then it turned out my future was going to be on creating better activities for the internet and for people. And by pure coincidence, I was introduced to a deaf person who, through an interpreter, told me how much they wanted to be out with the hearing people, but nobody will pay any attention to them. That conversation created, in my mind, the creation of the silent network. And the word silent is actually an acronym for, let's see, the acronym was um, silent, sign language entertainment. And by cutting the first word letters of all of those turned out to be silent network. And uh, that was 28 years ago. So anyway, to make a long story interminable, that was a fairly interesting project. I had a lot of entertainment uh, before that, and all types of things that I could do, and I really always enjoyed it. But I met a deaf person, and the woman that created an idea. She said, "It's too bad that we don't have anything for our deaf children." And before she finished the sentence, I said, "Okay, that's my next job." And I sat down with her, and she taught me what Silent Network was about, what what needed to be done. And for the past 28 years, I created the Silent Network. The word silent, by the way, is sign language entertainment. And everybody, there's signs, and we had um, all kinds of ways of having the deaf come out of their uh, area and learn more about how they're going to be able to see a lot of people. Uh, but for me, my career was based entirely on what can I do? It was always, what can I do? And if you don't know how to do it, I'll do it anyway. And I enjoyed that part. And a lot of things I could do because nobody wanted to do it. And my career um, was very upbeat. All the people that I met were enthusiastic. They would come up with an idea and I'd make it work, make it happen. And when I did that with deaf people over the 28 years, there must have been about more than 150 deaf people who were coming into the world, the hearing world, and changing their life. And that caught on. Marley Matlin is an example, deaf woman who's a terrific actress and has a wonderful life ahead because people now aren't arguing about whether you're deaf or hearing. And everybody has their own life. And the community of deaf people that I met are now working in one production or another. And so I'm happy that I've done that. I've retired a couple of weeks ago, and that will last probably about a week before I'm back producing something. And I enjoy it because I feel in my own self that certain things need to be done and aren't touched. And so I spend a lot of time working with projects that need to be seen by audiences. And I still have a lot of broadcast stuff, and the silent network is still going to go full board, although I'm now working on other projects.
And they're on a Roku, I guess now, right? The Silent Network.
Yes. Yes. Isn't everybody?
Not every, I mean, some are on just other streaming, but yeah, Roku's probably
Right.
the most popular.
Well, yes, I do as much as I can because the people that I talk to are a little confused. If you have an idea but don't know how to deal with it, then I'm there to help because they're coming up with things that the world should see, and they're a little nervous about giving their full interest. So I'll take it from them, make it happen, and then I'll turn it back over to them. I do a lot of that.
So like after the Silent Network, I guess you produced quite a few things still outside
You
of
guessed that right.
yeah. So I saw
Yeah.
like the long list of credits there. I mean, because you founded what it was Silent Network in the 80s, and then by the 90s or so that you Kaleidoscope or some other company took it over.
Yeah.
So post career, what sort of things did you do afterwards? I know, like I saw a variety of things, like pet shows. And of
Yeah.
course, you had the Blazing Spurs, or the
Yeah.
Western comedy, and a bunch of different things. So how did that all happen? Like in the later career, what sort of
It always happened in the location I was at the time. I spent 3 years in Texas producing shows that the Texans couldn't figure out how to do, and so I had this series of broadcasts and, what have you. Then I started traveling all over the United States. I went to many cities and did shows, did a lot of information on how a person can actually start their own network and all of those things. And so that filled a lot of time. But as I got older, I started moving all of the stuff that I normally do into one big package. So now I'm fortunate to live with my daughter, who you've already met, and that enables me to work on the future. I have a lot of help here, and I am still in the process of creating things that will work, and I'll have something exciting to do. I'm 86. I feel as good today as I did 10 years ago. It's all a matter of finding what you really want to work with and making it happen. And that's what I do. I do a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have done, but I love every minute of it and just keep on keeping on. And when I look back on history, I can say there wasn't one time that I haven't wanted to produce something.
So they're pretty much passion project, a little different in Hollywood versus like the startup community and all these other kind of things that are so financially driven these days. There's still some hope for passion driven projects. Most of the time, especially in Hollywood nowadays, right? It's all about marketing analysis. Will this show do well? Have you done any tests with audiences? How many possible viewers do you have? And, all that kind of noise can really get in the way of producing a good show or producing quality content. But as we've seen, that's pretty much the Hollywood machine has really been really accelerated in modern times just by microfinancing and the fact that everybody is having a harder time making earnings out of their media entertainment. And it comes with the fact that there's just so much stuff out there too. So it's so much easier to produce things and so much more content that's available on different media, right? Like YouTube or streaming or television. Still, television and cable are still there. So there's more opportunities, but it also kind of tightens up the possibilities of because there's so much out there that which things the audience is going to watch.
Yeah, the interesting aspect of that is that when programs start right after the early period, last couple of years, people were looking for an opportunity to do a new network, not a TV show, but a network. And that was not an easy process to really set up a workable situation. I did the best I could to help some people put it all together, but it wasn't easy. But the good part was that people were actually working to have good programming on television. And so all I could do was help them guide themselves into the process. And that was a good opportunity for the people who wanted to go somewhere but weren't really up to speed on whether it would happen or not. So here I am just sitting in Oceanside, California in 86, and I'm still working on another project. Nothing will ever stop. I will just keep on keeping on. And
I suppose the
so
internet's opened up some possibilities here because now you no longer have to go and actually be on the set to be the producer, right? So you
that's
can
right.
you can be in Oceanside, California. You don't have to go to Texas or Reno or wherever else. You can
That's
go
right.
in to assist with production. So that's great.
Uh, yeah, that's very true. And I'm getting a lot of people calling me saying, "Can you do this or that or the other thing?" And I'm always there. I'm always doing it because it keeps me moving and it helps the person who calls. And I'm a happy camper. And I never really enjoyed living and working in Hollywood. I have to be honest and say that was overkill. And it got to a point where all I could look for are other opportunities.
So it,
Okay, what do you want to know?
so yeah, so I mean that was a pretty good wrap up. Say, so you just released this book.
Yes.
It's a fairly good read. If
It is my life. It's all in that book. I enjoyed reading it. That had a lot of things in there I forgot about.
yeah.
But it's an interesting book. And the book that you saw, the book was my history. People kept harping about, "What have you done? What do you do?" And so on and so forth. I said, "Damn it, I'll get a book." And I did the book, and now everybody wants to know, "When did you do that? When did that book come out?" I said, "Doesn't matter. Buy it."
Yeah. And then the cover, you got like four, looks like four Emmy Awards, and you couldn't fit all the awards on the cover, right?
No, I have 12,
12.
but but there wasn't enough room.
Wow.
Um, I always love that picture because if you look at what I was doing when that was snapped, I had a big rag and I was cleaning off uh, the little trailers for awards. It didn't dawn on me that it was going to become a book. People kept asking me the same questions over and over and over again. So I finally said, okay, I'm going to write it in a book and hand them a book if they want to know what's going on. So that's how that book came about. I read it the other day and I thought, gee, I can't believe I wrote that. That was the subtitle for the book itself. I can't believe I did all that. One of the best stories I have in my book is when I spent a day with Golda Meir, a famous woman in Israel. And I did a show with her some time ago. My techie that was handling the light in the studio that we were doing, somebody kicked one of the pieces and it, it broke hair that was being broadcast. So
Ooh.
everything came to an end, and Golda Meir just went out on the balcony and had a cigarette while we were putting it all back together again. And the guy that did all the video, he was the shooter on the video of that entire network. He wasn't aware that 12 Secret Service people took their guns out of their holster and stood behind him with their gun right over his neck because they thought he had taken out some sort of a weapon. He took out a light meter, one of those small light meters that techies do. And all the gun people didn't have a clue what that was. And so I had to jump into the middle of that stage and say, cool it. This is a light meter for crying out loud. So that story runs in the book. That that
Wow.
was one of my favorite books because if you knew how threatening that was, there were 24 Secret Service people all around the room. And when they didn't think that what he had in his hand was decent, they jumped on him with their guns, and they were all right on his neck. So I
Uh,
had to stop that, and that was probably the most interesting process I've ever done. Uh, but it all worked out, and neither the cameraman the cameraman didn't know what was going on. He wasn't aware of it. So it was one of those processes that every time I hear about it, I have to laugh because they jumped on everything.
Wow, those are just some mind-blowing stories. Thanks so much, Sheldon, for sharing all those amazing anecdotes throughout Hollywood and throughout the world. Thanks everyone for joining us with another episode of Entrepreneur Arts, and I hope everyone enjoyed this very special interview with Sheldon Altfeld, Emmy Award-winning producer and founder of the Silent Network. Thanks everyone again for watching. Today's episode was brought to you by PrimeEvilPixels.com.